Hey, JC here for retirecheap.asia. I got another little article I want to mention that got sent to me that I thought was real interesting, and I wanted to address it. You know, I just did this thing about a video on YouTube about Americans maybe not having to worry about their Medicare supplements or Medicare payments, which covers medical for Americans if you're in the country. And if you leave the country, then you lose that benefit and you have to pay for your own medical. And so that might be going bankrupt in 3 or 4 years, so that might not be an issue anymore. But this was an article that ran across my desk, and I thought I'd comment on it. This is from the Daily Telegraph, which is Australian, sorry about that, Australian newspaper, the Daily Telegraph, and it's called, the title of it was Homeless Vagabond's Pension Victory. And it seems as though there was a homeless guy who spent most of his time wandering around overseas because he didn't have enough money to live in Australia. And he won the right to keep his pension, because in Australia one of the things is, as soon as you're out, I think, if I'm mistaken, please accept my apologies, I think it's about 3 weeks, you start to lose your rights for your pensions and things like that after you're out of the country. And then you got to prove that you're living back there again before they pick them back up again. But he won the right to keep his welfare payments because he argued the fact that he couldn't live in Australia for the amount of money that they were giving him, so that he was forced to live in other countries. And so that was an interesting argument, and he won based on that. It was initially, his pension was initially canceled, it says, in March because he didn't have a fixed address in Australia. Which means he didn't meet the residential requirements. And he's always spent about 2/3 of his time overseas. So the guy he has a little bit of a problem with schizophrenia. He's lived this nomadic lifestyle for decades. And he's been receiving his pension since 1984, before it got canceled. It says for 10 years he spent time in Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, Singapore, Laos, China, Vietnam, because that's where he could survive on the amount of money they were giving him, right? So the Administrative Appeals Tribunal has overturned the departmental decision to cut his pension, ruling that he needed to travel overseas because of his poverty, that he couldn't live on the money they were giving him, that he was forced to do this. So this is a big deal, right? His travel overseas is linked to the difficulties he has faced as a homeless person in Australia and his current lack of assets, the AAT ruled. He does not travel to one country, but he moves around. He says it enables him to get a room with TV and air conditioning, together with 3 meals a day and some beer money within the tight parameters of his pension payment. Well, it's interesting that they say the beer payment as the beer money as being a necessity for living. Interesting, huh? So, how are you today? Very good. Hey, how are you? Sabay di mai? Good. It says the applicant is unable to afford accommodations in Australia on his pension. He avoids Melbourne and Sydney because of the cooler weather. So there you go. He says if he ever gets his inheritance from his 100-year-old mother's inheritance, it'll enable him to buy a caravan, and he might be able to live there. But anyway, he considers Australia his home, and although the applicant's home base is a series of sites on Aboriginal land and a number of informal arrangements, including staying with friends, family, or camping, he does feel that Australia is his home, and it does not mean he has no connection with Australia. And that's what the AAT ruled. So there you go. When it comes to arguing the right to get money from the government, remember, there's always an option.